Next question. Have you received any awards? Competitions and awards in the music world represent the antithesis of what music is about. You have the Grammy Awards, for example. You don't win a Grammy by making a great record. You win a Grammy by having the most people know about your record and want to support you. That's very different from making a profound work of art. The same goes for any jazz competition. Thelonious Monk would not have won the Thelonious Monk competition if he had participated in it, because his work was too groundbreaking, too original, and too much not subscribing to the norms of the time to be accepted as the greatest by the standard of the time. It was only after he did what he did for a long period of time that he became known as one of the greatest. Because it takes such a long time to absorb and understand anything that is different from the status quo. So it ends up being the status quo that gets the most attention and the status quo that ends up winning competitions. That being said, I have received a couple of awards, like the Best Jazz Entertainer in Chicago from the Chicago Music Awards. There was I can't remember what it was called. I wrote a brass quintet that won an award and was performed in Chicago, but I can't remember the name of the award. And there have been some others, but they go way into the back of my mind because I don't find them important in the slightest. Do you teach or are you otherwise involved in education is the next question. That's something that I find important. The greatest artists in history have also been teachers. Maybe not the greatest teachers, but they've all been teachers. Every great musician that you hear about has been a mentor to other musicians, that some of which also became great musicians in their own right. Miles Davis was notorious for that, bringing people into his band that were young and that could be conceptually molded into artists that would be as great as he was. Herbie does the same thing. Great artists throughout history have always educated. Not necessarily in academia. In fact, you have a lot of musicians that just weren't able to make it in the real world that then went to academia so that they could teach and make a living, because it's hard to make a living in music. That being said, yes, I do teach, but I don't teach in the traditional sense. Every once in a long while, I will come across a student who is passionate enough to be really taught, and I will give them lessons. But they tend to be older. I don't teach beginners, and I have started a YouTube channel where I give lessons online to other pianists about what I'm working on at the time. I've been doing it for about 10 years, and it's grown to about 24,000 subscribers, all of whom are pianists who are interested in jazz, and I have very rewarding and exciting interactions with the pianists on that channel. And I only upload videos when I'm genuinely interested in something and I want to just show it to other pianists who might also be interested in it. It's kind of funny. I've been touring around festivals now, and sometimes, well, at almost every show I do, there is at least someone who watches my channel and they come up to me and say, I'm a fan of, I call it weekly piano. But then every once in a while, there will be young pianists playing in the other bands who have subscribed to my channel. Like there's a guy named Deschanel, who he approached me at a recent festival I played and said that he's 21 years old now. He's been watching my channel since he was 16, and he played and he picked up a bunch of the stuff that I had been, that I play and that I've shown the people on my channel. So it makes me really happy, and it's very rewarding to see that other people are getting something out of the videos that I've put up. Because I just put the videos up when I'm interested in the subjects. But that's how I educate. Do you have any stories about a teacher or a name player with whom you've worked? Things they've told you that changed things for you? One of the people that has affected my playing in my life in the most profound way has been Herbie Hancock. I met him about 10 years ago when I snuck backstage at a concert at Ravinia Festival in Chicago, and I followed him around that day trying to ask him about technical things that he was playing, and it was really hard to start a dialogue with him in that way. But then eventually I asked him how he expanded his creativity, and that led to a conversation about Buddhism, which to this day has been a deep staple in my life and has held a foundational place for how I live life, and then also how I create music. Herbie did end up teaching me some aspects of how he plays piano, and has helped me with various things like technique and concept, but it's been much more than that in terms of how he has affected my life as a human being, through introducing me to Nietzsche and Buddhism. It's a staple in how I live every day, which actually that could go back to the hobby question of what are some of my hobbies, and you could almost call it a hobby because every morning when I wake up I do a meditation, and every night when I go to sleep I do that same meditation, and often on plane rides I'll meditate for hours. It's a chanting meditation where you say the words Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which has a very profound meaning that I won't go into right now. So my interactions with him have had a very profound effect on my life. Quincy Jones has also been a mentor and a guide to me over the past 6 or so years. Also a business partner, as I'm working with Quest TV to distribute the Tiny Room series that I've been doing in my studio. But Quincy's one of the most profound individuals I've ever met. I remember him telling me a lot of the stories that eventually came out in that interview that he did, that blew up and got him this other bout of sort of like a rejuvenation of his fame. He's one of the most free and introspective and thoughtful individuals that I've ever met, and inspires me to be free and thoughtful and introspective. He and Wayne Shorter possess some of the same qualities. Wayne is another friend of mine that I met through this Buddhism that I practice. But they both tend to live with a childlike mentality of fearlessness and like living life like it's a game that we play, that we only have so much time to play, and we want to play it as best as we can in the time that we have. Wayne has these figurines that he sets up at his house, that he has these little fantasy stories with like fairies and gnomes and things. It's really profound. And in my discussions with Wayne about music, he's told me I asked him how I can gain more depth in my music, and he told me, you don't gain depth in your music, you expand your life. So you read a new book or watch a new movie and embrace these other aspects of creativity into your life, and it comes out through your music. Those have been some very significant figures and inspirations to me in my life and how I play music. Do I have any family members who are musical? Have you collaborated with any family members? Well, so like I said earlier in the interview, my family members are generally musical. Even my little brother and my little sister play music, though they don't do it professionally. They're very talented. Um, I did a show. We called it All in the Family, and I did it like, I don't know, 5 years ago or 6 years ago in Chicago with my dad and my sister and my grandpa and my brother, actually, and my mom. The whole family participated in it, and we wrote songs together and produced them, and then ended up with this performance that we did at a festival somewhere north of Chicago. So yeah, we did a whole collaboration. I think there's a recording of it somewhere out there. Tell us about your most significant musical collaborations. One of my best friends and my most significant partners in crime, as I call it, is Micaiah McCraven. I met him outside the house of a party that this guy Tim Green was hosting in Chicago like 13 years ago, when he was just moving to Chicago and I was just getting back from college. And we both got stuck outside of Tim's house because nobody could hear the buzzer when we were trying to buzz up, and he had a case of beer and I was just standing there. I thought he was like 40 years old. He was like 23 or something like that. He's been one of my best friends ever since then. Well, it was kind of funny when we went up to the party. It was a jam session. We had just met outside. We were like, okay, let's play together. We might as well. You're a drummer, I'm a pianist. He said to me, I should warn you, they're playing a lot of really chill music here, but I like to play loud. And I said, I think we're going to make really good friends. And it was sort of a match made in heaven. After that, we called it the Spero McCraven Duo, and played some shows at rock clubs where it was just like this really cool, loud, electronic infused, improvised instrumental music. Micaiah came on my tours in the UK. I've come on Micaiah's tours. We played on each other's albums. Micaiah's been my drummer on all my albums up until the Spirit Fingers project, where I've been using Mike Mitchell, which is also a very significant collaborator of mine. Man, I love great drummers. The drummer in a group is something that plays a huge part in how I play my instrument. I get a lot of my inspiration moment to moment from what the drummer's playing. So that's why I gravitate towards drummers that have a lot of ideas to portray, like Micaiah, who's highly musical, or Mike, who has more chops than anybody else who plays the drums, like probably literally, and is also deeply musical and very exciting in his playing. Let's see what else. My most significant, amazing, interesting gig. The most interesting gig I've ever played was probably with the Buddy Rich Big Band at the Palladium in London. This was a drummer fest. It was the first time I ever played with Dave Weckl and John Blackwell, and even the guy from Cream. What's his name? Oh, the drummer from Cream. He's an asshole. I can't remember his name. But I respect him. I respect assholes. Keith Jarrett is an asshole, and I respect the fuck out of him. He's one of the most profound musicians and people that I've ever heard or met. I'm not going to remember his name. It's okay. But anyway, that was one of the most significant gigs I've played, and they took the cream of the crop from London as far as horns go, and incredibly talented musicians, Um, and then brought in some incredible drummers, and I also got to play with, what's his name that night? The singer from Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson. I think we did Smoke on the Water. That was also with the drummer from Cream. Yeah, that was my most significant, interesting gig, probably. I mean, sort of. Because all of the festivals, like, anytime I played with Spirit Fingers, it's been an incredibly profound experience. We played festivals all over the world. And with Micaiah, so it's really actually hard to say that was the most significant. It probably wasn't. I've also played arenas around the world with Halsey and playing in front of 15,000 people every night. So that's like almost a distant memory now, even though I left the band not even 2 years ago. With the Halsey project, we started when we were playing to 80 people every night. The first show was to 80 people at SIR in Los Angeles, and it was right when she got signed to Capitol Records, and they got rid of her high school band and wanted to hire some people who could really fill out the music in a more, in a deeper way. So they hired me and a guy named Nate Lotz to be the live band. So I designed all the sounds for that show. For the entire 3 years that I was with Halsey, I designed all the sounds that were used for the live keyboard parts, and it was mostly keyboard parts when it was live, because it's a very synthesizer-based sound that she has. And by the end of my run with her, we were playing Madison Square Garden multiple times, all the major awards shows, all the late night TV shows, and I finally put in my retirement the day that we played Saturday Night Live, because I felt like that was the furthest that I could take the group up, and I needed to focus on my own music after that. I was so happy to put in the time and the effort in that group that I did, and I had some of the most amazing travel experiences of my life up to that point. I'd never traveled the world like that. We hit everywhere in the world, 6 of the 7 continents that we played on, most of the major cities. And that was quite a wild ride for me. But after I left that group, I started playing more of the music that I loved, which is jazz, which is in my heart and soul, and then was able to focus fully on my band, Spirit Fingers, to the point where now we are doing international tours, and I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do from a musical perspective, which is challenge myself as deeply as I can challenge myself and expand with every performance. Yeah, self-challenge, I would say, is another one of my hobbies. It might seem a little masochistic, but I like to try to see how hard I can work out or how intensely I can stress out my body by staying in the steam room for super, super long, how far I can run, how long I can practice in a row, how long I can meditate, and how deep I can go in a concept, like the way that I'm exploring the polyrhythmic concept that turned into Spirit Fingers. Any other personal tidbits or anecdotes that might help tell us your story? Man. Music is a way of life for me. I feel like it's the thing that I have to offer in this world, and so I dedicate myself to it fully at the expense of pretty much every other aspect of my life. Because it's hard to have balance when you obsess so deeply over something. I'm absolutely in love with it and enthralled with it. And I'm really appreciative of all the people who helped me make it the centerpiece of my life and help me focus on creating. And there are a lot of people. There's so many people who help in the process of making a career for a musician. And I have a great depth of appreciation for them. I've had so much support over the years. But that's all I got. I'm a little tapped out. I hope this interview has been helpful.